When the human envoy named Daniel walked through the tall silver gates of the Zarinthian Royal Hall, he never imagined his quiet life would change forever. He had come as a diplomatic assistant, not a hero, not a warrior, and definitely not someone who expected the full attention of an alien queen with the power to break planets if she wished. Yet life had strange ways of choosing people like him, the ones who never wanted power but handled it the best. Queen Aravel of the Zarinth Dominions stood on the raised platform as he entered. Her presence was calm yet strong, like a storm hidden inside soft light. Her eyes were a rare deep blue that glowed without any technology, and her armor gently shimmered with symbols of old victories. She ruled over a star cluster that humans still charted on maps. Humans had never met a monarch like her, and Daniel had never met anyone like her at all. She stepped down from her throne and walked toward him in slow, steady movements. The guards straightened, and Daniel swallowed, feeling his throat tighten. He bowed respectfully, hoping he did it correctly according to alien customs. He had studied for weeks, but meeting her in person made every memory slip away for a second. "Human envoy, Daniel," she said, her voice soft but powerful enough to echo through the hall. "Welcome back to the Royal Hall. You have completed the second stage of our diplomatic agreement. Your performance was admirable." Daniel smiled nervously. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I'm just doing my job." She studied him quietly for a long moment, as if trying to understand why a simple human carried such steady confidence. Humans fascinated the Zarinthians. They were physically weaker, slower, and shorter-lived, yet they walked into danger as if fear was only a suggestion. Many alien civilizations admired humans for that alone. The Zarinthians, however, admired something deeper. Humans cared, even when they had no reason to. That was why Queen Aravel found herself observing him more than she should. After the long meeting ended and the hall cleared of officials, she walked toward him again. Her guards stepped away, forming a respectful distance. Daniel took out his communication tablet, planning to review the day's notes before leaving. Then, without warning, the Queen stopped mid-step. Her eyes locked onto his screen. Daniel froze. His mind began racing when he realized she could see what was on the display. Multiple images were visible, images of her, official portraits from public records, ceremonial photographs, and a few candid shots from the celebrations 2 nights ago. Pictures every citizen had access to. Pictures he used purely for studying her expressions, mannerisms, and communication style so he would not insult her during negotiations. But her expression changed in a way he had never seen before. Her eyes widened, her breath paused, and for a brief second, the powerful Queen looked almost unsure. "Is that me on your device?" she asked softly. The hall fell completely silent. Even the guards looked confused. Daniel's heartbeat hit his ears. He had wanted to avoid this exact moment. Humans carried pictures of leaders to understand political nuance. Zarinthians, however, had strict cultural beliefs about likeness and representation. For them, saving someone's image wasn't casual, it was personal. Deeply personal. He swallowed and forced his voice to stay steady. "Yes, Your Majesty, they're just reference photos. For work. I use them to prepare for meetings so I don't misunderstand your expressions." She blinked slowly, studying his face. Her glowing eyes softened in a way that didn't feel dangerous, only curious. "You saved these pictures because you wished to understand me better?" "Yes, exactly." "You kept them so you would not disappoint me?" "Well, yes." Her head tilted slightly. To humans, it might look like confusion. To Zarinthians, it was something else, something emotional. Daniel didn't realize that. Queen Aravel took another step forward. "You studied my expressions on your own time, and you stored these images privately. No one instructed you to do that." That's right. She stared at him as if he had just revealed the secret of the universe. To my people, she said slowly, saving a queen's image is a sign of deep respect. It is something only trusted advisors, royal protectors, or close companions would do. It is not a casual act, not insignificant. Daniel felt heat rush to his face. I didn't mean to cross any cultural lines. I'm sorry if... She raised a hand gently. I am not angry. The guards glanced at one another. The queen rarely spoke in such a gentle tone. Daniel felt the tension in his body loosen slightly. I only wish to understand your intention, she continued. Humans are curious creatures, but this is unexpected. Daniel nodded. Humans use pictures for memory. I didn't think much of it. And yet, she said, stepping close enough that he could see faint patterns on her skin. You saved more than one. Because each one teaches something different, he said honestly. Your ceremonial photos show authority, your diplomatic photos show calmness, and the festival ones showed a little joy. All of them helped me do better. Her eyes softened again. It was subtle, but the guards noticed. Even they exchanged looks. Something unusual was happening. Aravel looked at his tablet again. Show me. Daniel hesitated, but then opened the gallery. He held the device carefully as she leaned in slightly. Not enough to cross boundaries, just close enough to see. She examined the photos one by one. Her expression changed every time. Finally, she asked, Which one is your favorite? Daniel almost dropped the tablet. My favorite? Yes. Her voice was calm, not teasing. Which image did you save with the most care? He didn't want to answer. Not because the answer was inappropriate, there was nothing romantic or forbidden about it, but because it felt personal. Slowly, he opened the candid photo taken during the lantern ceremony. She wasn't wearing armor. She wasn't sitting on her throne. She wasn't surrounded by guards. She was looking up at the floating lights with a small private smile, one that wasn't in any official archives. I like this one, he said quietly. You looked peaceful and real. And for a moment you didn't seem like a queen carrying 1,000 responsibilities. You looked like someone who could breathe. The queen didn't breathe for several seconds. Then she whispered, No one has ever spoken to me like that. Daniel blinked. Is that bad? No, she said softly, almost too softly for a ruler known for her strength. It is simply new. Her hand hovered near the tablet but didn't touch it. You saw something my own people do not usually notice. They see authority. They see leadership. They see power. But you, she paused. You saw me as someone who feels the weight of that power. Daniel didn't know what to say. He had just been honest, nothing more. But honesty, in a palace full of politics, could be rare and powerful. She took a breath. You may keep these images. I allow it. Daniel nodded. Thank you. But, she added, stepping even closer, I want you to tell me something honestly. He swallowed. Of course. Her eyes glowed slightly brighter as she asked, Do you keep these pictures only for understanding my expressions, or because you care? The question wasn't an accusation. It wasn't a test. It was a genuine search for truth. Daniel didn't know what reaction she expected, but he told the truth anyway. Both. The room felt warmer after he said it. The queen looked down for a moment as if steadying her breath. I see, she whispered. Her voice had changed, softer, more human than before. Guards at the back shifted nervously. They hadn't seen her behave like this in years. She straightened slightly. Human, you are unlike the others I have met. Daniel shook his head. I'm nobody special. That, she said, is the most human thing I have heard today. She turned slightly, signaling the guards to stand down. Tomorrow, she said. You will meet me again. Alone. There are things I wish to understand about humans and about you. Daniel blinked, stunned. Just me? Yes, she replied. Just you. She paused, her eyes lingering one more second on his tablet. And bring your device, she added quietly. We will continue our discussion about these pictures. Then she walked away, leaving Daniel standing in the silent hall with his heart pounding harder than any battle drum. Daniel hardly slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he kept replaying the Queen's voice in his mind, the moment she asked him whether he kept her pictures because he cared. He had never expected such a question from a ruler of her level. He wasn't a noble. He wasn't a high-ranking commander or a decorated diplomat. He was just a human analyst who tried to do his job well. But something had shifted in the palace yesterday. He could feel it. The next morning, Daniel made his way toward the Queen's private observatory. The guards looked at him with unusual curiosity, but they did not stop him. One of them simply said, "Her Majesty is expecting you," with a respectful tone that left him even more nervous. He walked through the long corridor of crystal windows. Stars shone on both sides, and the path glowed gently beneath his feet. The Zarinthians built their palace like a temple to the universe, with light and silence woven into every part. He reached the tall circular door that opened like unfolding petals. Inside, the room felt like standing inside the galaxy itself. Millions of stars projected across the walls, and the Queen stood in the center, looking up as if speaking to them. She turned when she sensed him enter. "You came," she said. "I did. You asked for me." "Yes." She studied him quietly. "Bring your device." Daniel stepped closer and held out his tablet. She did not take it. Instead, she motioned for him to stand beside her. It was strange. Normally, everyone stood at least 2 steps away from her unless she invited them. To stand next to her like this was almost unheard of. The projection lights shimmered across her face as she looked at the tablet screen. "Show me again." Daniel opened the gallery of her photos. She watched each one slowly, as if she were learning something new each time. He tried not to stare at her, but it was difficult. She looked different today, less guarded, more curious, almost soft. After several minutes of silence, she spoke again. "Yesterday, when you described why you saved these pictures, it made me think." "Think about what?" "Humans," she said simply. "And myself." Daniel didn't expect that. "Your Majesty?" She didn't look away from the stars. "My people see me as a symbol, a weapon, a ruler who must always act correctly and without hesitation. But you," she glanced at him, "you saw something else." Daniel spoke carefully. "I saw someone trying to carry a heavy weight." She breathed out slowly. "Yes, that is the truth most forget." She took another step closer to the projection. "Do you know something, Daniel? In Zarinthian culture, we value strength above everything. But strength does not mean honesty. It does not mean admitting weakness. We are discouraged from it." Daniel nodded. "Humans are similar sometimes, but not always. We learn from small things, even from emotions." She turned to him fully now. "And that is what fascinates me. You humans feel so easily, yet you still choose bravery. You fear loss, yet you still move forward. You notice pain, yet you still offer kindness. I do not understand how you do this." Daniel let out a breath. "I don't know if it's something humans do on purpose. It's just who we are." She looked down at the tablet again. "When you saved these pictures, you showed me a side of myself I had never seen." Daniel blinked. "I didn't mean to change anything. I just wanted to understand you better." "And that," Aravel whispered, "is what changed everything." Silence settled between them again. The stars glowed gently, painting soft blue light around their faces. Finally, she said, "Walk with me." She led him through a hidden door behind the star map. The path opened into a quiet garden suspended in open space, surrounded by transparent walls. The plants glowed with silver-blue petals, and floating lights drifted like soft fireflies. A peaceful breeze brushed across Daniel's arms, and he realized it was artificial, created just to make the atmosphere welcoming. "This place is off-limits to all," she said. "Even my advisors do not enter without explicit permission." Daniel hesitated. "Why bring me here?" "Because I wish to understand something, and you might be the only one who can show me." They walked along the circular pathway, the lights dancing around them. Daniel could feel a strange mix of honor and nervousness. He had never walked beside royalty in such a private place. He didn't want to say anything wrong. Finally, the Queen slowed her steps. "When I looked at the picture you said was your favorite," she said softly, "the one where I smiled during the lantern ceremony, something inside me reacted." Daniel blinked. "Reacted how?" "Zerinthians do not smile often," she explained. "Smiling is for rare moments, but that night, surrounded by my people celebrating peace, I felt free. Only for a moment. I did not expect anyone to notice." Daniel swallowed. "It was natural and honest. That's why it stood out." "And you captured it," she said, her voice quiet. "You saved something even I had forgotten." Daniel didn't know what to say. He simply nodded, letting her continue. "Daniel," she said, "when I asked you whether you kept my photos because you cared, I was not prepared for your answer." "I didn't want to lie," he said softly. "I know. That is what surprised me." She looked up at the floating lights again, her expression distant. "Honesty is rare in royal halls. Everyone wants something. Everyone hides their true emotions. But you—" She turned to him again. "You speak plainly even when it feels uncomfortable." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "It's just how humans are, or at least how I am." "It is refreshing," she admitted, "and dangerous." "Dangerous?" "Yes," she said softly, "because honesty can change hearts, and mine has not known change in a very long time." Daniel's breath hitched. He wasn't sure what she meant, but her tone carried something deeper than political interest. She walked a few steps ahead, then paused near a shimmering tree. "Tell me something, Daniel. In human culture, when someone saves another's picture, what does it mean?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Sometimes it means respect, sometimes admiration, or interest, or wanting to remember someone." "Remember," she repeated softly. "That is a strange word for a queen. I am not allowed to be forgotten, so remembering me feels unnecessary. But the idea that someone keeps my image because they want to is completely new." She brushed her fingers lightly against one of the glowing petals. "Do humans save pictures of those they value?" "Yes," Daniel said quietly. "Often." She turned her head slightly toward him. "Then what does it mean that you saved mine?" Daniel inhaled slowly. "It means I respect you, and I admire you, and I wanted to understand you as a person, not just as a queen." Aravel closed her eyes for a moment, as if those words carried a weight she wasn't used to carrying. "No Zerinthian has ever spoken of me like this. They see the crown, not me. And humans see both," Daniel said gently. "A leader and a person." She opened her eyes again, softer than before. "You make it sound simple. For humans, maybe it is." They continued walking until they reached the center of the garden, where a small pool reflected the stars. The lights rippled across the water. "Daniel," she said quietly, "yesterday you said you cared. Today, I want to understand what that care feels like." Daniel froze. His heart thumped loudly. He wasn't sure what to say. "I don't want anything from you," he finally said. "I don't want power. I don't want favor. I care because you deserve to be seen, not just as a queen, but as someone with hopes and burdens." She stared at him for a long time. The floating lights drifted slowly between them, making everything feel unreal. "You are very human," she whispered, "and very strange." Daniel let out a nervous laugh. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is," she said. Then her gaze softened even more, an expression he had never thought a queen could show. "Daniel, will you show me more pictures?" He blinked. "Of you?" "No," she said gently. "Of Earth, of your people, of what humans care about." Daniel nodded. "Of course." He opened his tablet and scrolled through a folder of landscapes, cities, families, festivals, and small, everyday moments. Children running through a park, a sunset over an ocean, a grandmother laughing with her grandson, a firefighter rescuing a cat, a group of friends celebrating a birthday. Aravel watched every image with deep interest. Humans live with such emotion. You love, you fear, you hope, you cry, all with such intensity. "That's life," Daniel said softly. She placed her hand near the tablet, not touching it, just close. "And you carry all this inside you?" "Yes." "And you still choose kindness?" "I try." She looked at him again, her expression unreadable. "I have made a decision, Daniel." "About what?" "About you." He swallowed. "Should I be worried?" "No," she said. "You should be ready." He didn't get a chance to ask what she meant, because she stepped closer, only a little, but enough to show trust. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "I will tell you something important, something no human has ever been allowed to know." Daniel's breath tightened. "Why me?" Her eyes softened in a way that made his heart beat louder. "Because you cared enough to keep my picture, and honest enough to tell me why." She turned away, signaling the meeting was over. "Go now," she said. "Before I start asking questions I am not prepared to ask today." Daniel left the garden with his heart pounding, realizing something enormous had begun. Daniel barely made it back to his quarters before sitting down on the edge of the bed, trying to calm the wave of thoughts spinning inside him. The Queen's last words stayed in his mind like an echo he couldn't silence. She had said she would tell him something no human had ever been allowed to know, and she said it with a softness he had never seen in her before, as if the decision carried emotion she did not fully understand. He lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what tomorrow might bring. The stars outside his window looked calm, but his heart felt anything but calm. A queen trusting a human with a secret. That wasn't normal. That wasn't diplomatic. That was something deeper. When morning finally came, Daniel dressed quickly and made his way through the palace corridors. Today the guards didn't simply acknowledge him. They stepped aside with quiet respect. Their eyes followed him in a way that said something had changed. Maybe they felt the shift too. Maybe the Queen had said something after he left. He reached the tall doors of the private garden again. They opened immediately. This time, the Queen was already waiting. She stood near the glowing tree from yesterday, the soft silver-blue light falling over her hair and armor. When she turned toward him, there was no formality in her expression today. No throne-like distance, only calm intention. "Daniel," she said, "come." He stepped forward. She watched him for a moment before speaking. "Last night, I stayed here for many hours. I thought about your words and about my reaction to them." Daniel nodded quietly, not wanting to interrupt. "Humans," she continued, "are full of a kind of warmth I rarely see. You feel compassion even when it brings no benefit. You notice sadness even when it is not your problem. You saved my picture because you wanted to understand me, but you also saved it because I mattered to you." Daniel felt heat rise in his face, but he stayed silent. "I realized something," she said softly. "Something simple, something important, something I have never allowed myself to consider." He swallowed. "What is it?" "Your Majesty." "That I have been alone for a very long time." The honesty in her voice was so raw that Daniel almost forgot she was a queen. At that moment, she sounded like a person carrying years of silent weight. "Not alone in presence," she clarified. "I am surrounded by advisors, nobles, generals, guards, many loyal to the crown, but none of them see me, not the way you saw me in those pictures." She turned away, gazing at the glowing petals drifting in the air. "No one has ever spoken to me as if I were simply Aravel, not Queen Aravel. No one saw the small moment of peace in that photo. No one even imagined I had small moments at all." Daniel wanted to speak, but she lifted her hand lightly to stop him. "You gave me something rare," she said. "A reflection of myself not shaped by fear or respect, but by sincerity." Daniel breathed deeply. "I didn't intend to affect you like that. I just told the truth." "Yes," she said, turning toward him again. "And that truth made me reconsider everything I believed about humans." He nodded slowly. "You said you wanted to tell me something important." Her expression changed. A seriousness settled into her features, not cold, not threatening, but heavy with meaning. "Yes," she said, "and I will. But first, I must ask you a question." Daniel's heart tightened. "Ask anything." Her eyes glowed softly, almost vulnerable. "Do you fear me, Daniel?" He blinked. The question shocked him. "I don't know if fear is the right word," he said quietly. "I respect you. You're powerful. But no, I don't fear you." Her breath eased slightly. "Good. Because what I will tell you requires trust, not fear." She motioned for him to walk with her again. They moved toward the far side of the garden, where a transparent wall revealed the entire star cluster outside. The view was breathtaking. Hundreds of stars glowed in patterns that shifted slowly, like a living map. "This," she said, "is the Zarinth core, my people's oldest territory, and the place where our deepest traditions are kept." Daniel watched her carefully as she continued. "There is something my people believe," she said. "A very old belief. Something only rulers of my line know. Something that has shaped our decisions for centuries." Daniel listened with full attention. "We believe," she said softly, "that interspecies bonds are dangerous." Daniel's eyebrows rose slightly, unsure what she meant. "Not because of biology," she continued, "not because of conflict, but because of emotion. Zarinthian hearts are strong, too strong. When we form a deep bond, it is not casual, not gentle, it is permanent. A connection that lasts for life. And if broken, it can break us." Daniel finally understood the weight behind her tone. "So your people avoid deep connections?" "Yes," she said. "Especially with other species. Especially rulers. A queen cannot afford to break." Daniel nodded. "But you said humans confuse you." "They do," she said, "because you form bonds easily, but you do not break under them. You love, you lose, you grieve, and still you rise." She looked at him, something intense behind her eyes. "That resilience is alien to us." He breathed slowly. "And what does that have to do with me?" She took a step closer. "Because I felt something yesterday, when you told me you cared. Something I should not have felt. Something my people would call dangerous." Daniel's heart thumped. "Your Majesty?" She shook her head gently. "I am not speaking of romance or desire. I am speaking of connection, trust. Emotional truth. Something humans share naturally, but Zarinthians fear. She looked down, almost ashamed. But I did not fear it. I welcomed it, and that frightens me more than I expected. Daniel took a slow breath. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't, she said, but you changed something inside me. She placed her hand lightly on the transparent wall, looking out at the stars. Daniel, no human has ever reached this level of closeness with a Zarinth queen. No human has been allowed into this garden. No human has seen me without the shield of formality. She turned again, her calm voice carrying truth. But you, I allowed it, and I do not know what that means yet. Daniel stepped closer, not too close, just enough for his voice to be steady. It means you're not as alone as you thought. Her eyes widened slightly. You asked if I feared you, Daniel said. I don't. And I don't want you to fear this either. Humans connect easily because we believe it makes us stronger, not weaker. She studied him for a long moment. Stronger, she repeated. Your species finds strength in connection? Yes, he said. Every human alive is shaped by the people they care about. She looked away slowly. Then perhaps I have lived wrongly. Daniel shook his head. No, you lived the way your people needed. But that doesn't mean you can't learn something new. She stared at him, and something gentle rose in her eyes. You speak like a teacher, yet you are just a diplomat's assistant. I didn't think a queen would ever listen to me, he admitted softly. And I didn't think a human could make me question centuries of belief, she replied. A small silence passed, soft, peaceful. Then she said, There is still something I must show you. She touched the wall again, and a hidden panel opened. A beam of blue light circled around her hand, recognizing her identity. A compartment slid open, revealing a small crystal sphere glowing with soft light. Daniel had never seen anything like it. This, she said, holding it carefully, is the heartstone of my lineage. It carries the memories and emotions of every ruler before me. Daniel blinked. Memories? Yes, she whispered. Real memories, their fears, their hopes, their victories, their regrets, their loneliness. Her voice trembled slightly. And now I must show you why Zarinthian queens avoid emotional bonds. She lifted the sphere. A soft flash of blue light spread through the garden. Then Daniel saw a vision, not fully clear, not fully formed, but enough to understand. A queen from long ago kneeling beside someone she loved. A heartbreak powerful enough to shatter planets. A vow made in tears, never again. When the light faded, Aravel lowered the heartstone, her breath unsteady. That is why, she said. That is the truth no human has known. Our hearts do not break. They collapse. Daniel stepped closer. But you're not them. You're you. She looked at him, stunned by the simplicity of his words. And your heart, Daniel said quietly, is stronger than you think. Her eyes softened, more than ever before. You believe that? I do. She took a slow breath, the tension melting slightly from her shoulders. Then I will make a choice no queen has made in centuries. Daniel's chest tightened. What choice? She stepped closer. Only a small step, but enough for him to feel the warmth of her presence. I choose, she said softly, to trust you with my heart's truth, and to trust myself, not to collapse. Daniel swallowed, feeling something shift between them, gentle and powerful. The queen looked at him one last time before speaking the final words of the day. Tomorrow, Daniel, I will ask you a question that will change everything. Then she turned away before he could answer, leaving him breathless and full of wonder.